Back with you tonight here on In Focus. The economy of KwaZulu-Natal continues to count the cost in the billions, to be exact, after the impact of last year's July unrest. The Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry says local businesses remain shattered, with some thousands of jobs at risk as the impact of the looting and destruction continues to be felt. Joining us now to count the cost is the Deputy President of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Gladwin Malishe. Gladwin, good evening, and thank you very much for your time here tonight on In Focus. How much of a recovery can we speak of since the July unrest, considering the fact that there have been, of course, a number of other factors that have contributed, others being macroeconomic, others being, of course, self-imposed right here at home in terms of energy capacity and of course, rising fuel prices adding to all those pressures. Can we speak of a recovery at all?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to your viewers. South Africans were a resilient nation, and we are able to pick ourselves up in whatever situation we've been. So I think the case of KZN is one of a remarkable one, because we can, even after the looting as well as the flood, we actually met with the president, and businesses were reaffirming to government their commitment in rebuilding, the economy of this province, especially the eThekwini. So big and small businesses are actually working very hard in making sure that we are rebuilding this economy. After the biggest losses, loss of stock, loss of equipment, machinery, even people losing their jobs through the looting, which we can't even today explain exactly what was happening, because no one has actually taken ownership of whatever actually happened. But as businesses together, collectively, we said that we need to make sure that we rebuild this economy, and we work with government and all the social partners in making sure that this economy is thriving again.
A number of jobs were lost due to those small businesses shutting down. Have those jobs been recovered?
Not all, Thabo. For instance, if I can give you an example, there are malls that actually open. I think one at Tumlazi that was looted and burnt. It was just open now on the 1st of July. Some are back at work, some are not back at work. Some people who are self-employed, who are hawkers, people who are selling on the street next to that mall, many of them are not back because they lost their stocks. Also, the people who used to go to that mall to buy were no longer there. So they've lost, that self-employment opportunity that they have through that shopping center, and many others. Others are still, on the phases of rebuilding slowly, in different phases. Others, nothing is happening at all because, these things need a lot of investment. Others are still waiting on the insurances and so on. So there are different levels of people, working themselves up back to the economy. So, but I think all in all, everyone is willing to start again, build this economy. I think as businesses, we are trying to make sure that we work as closely as government as possible, and making sure that we are ahead, when we feel that there is a threat, that we are able to work with government.
Yeah. How's the level of confidence, at this particular point? As we commemorate these 12 months since the unrest already, there are murmurs around of another shutdown, and in fact, if you look at some of the pictures coming from KwaZulu-Natal, there have been actually some blockades in some parts of KwaZulu-Natal. We are seeing something similar, particularly maybe in a much more intensified form in Mpumalanga. Are you confident that should something of that nature occur again, we will be able to respond effectively?
Well, we cannot give an accurate indicator to the measure of business confidence in the city of eThekwini. Even the whole of South Africa, as we mentioned in Mpumalanga yesterday, I think there were protests there. And also with the issues of electricity, the issue of fuel hike, and people are saying there must be much, there should be shut down and so on. We are actually, as business, hoping that we are able to sit down on the table as South Africans and find solutions. Because, picketing and shutting down the country is not going to give any solutions. It's not going to bring any job. It's not going to reduce any fuel, prices. But if we can sit together and find a way, there could be solutions here and there if we could sit down. and find a way to say, how do we deal with the issues that we're faced with? I think as businesses and our social partners, we need to sit down and also discuss the issue of protest in South Africa. If there is a community somewhere that feel aggrieved by something, it is important then they find a way of dealing with that issue without blocking the roads, because when you do that, you are actually interfering with the freedom of other people of movement who are moving up and down in that area, who are not concerned with your issues, but who are actually there doing businesses and doing other stuff. So it is important as a country that we are able to define, how should we protest, and our protest should not interfere with other people's rights, and also making sure that it doesn't destroy, our economy at the same time. So as you are mentioning, those protests which were happening even today in some areas in KZN, it is important for people to know that as they do that, we know that there is a pain that they are going through, but we must not increase the pain by actually killing the confidence that investors has on us. Even South African people who want to invest are actually very scared because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it is very important, therefore, that we are able to find a way with our social partners to deal with these issues in a manner like we saw in the 90s, where our fathers of democracy were able to sit down and find a solution for our democracy.
You speak of the resilience of the South African business. When you look at formal business, certainly some of them, banks and businesses of that nature, have been able to really bounce back and put back the infrastructure with the kind of insurance that they could have and the kind of resources at their disposal. But you also represent a huge number of informal traders, about 45,000 of them. Is that same degree or level of resilience displayed in that particular sector?
Well, it is there, but there is a role which is needed to be played by organized business as well as government. I think on behalf of the Chamber, what we have done already was to work with a company like Old Mutual last year, because we discovered that a large number of SMMEs who were affected by the looting didn't have, insurances. So we had to find a partner that is able to say, can we assist, SMMEs to be able to buy stock and rebuild their businesses. So that was a very successful story that we have as a Durban Chamber. And thanks to our partner, like the Domino Foundation, which we work with, as well as the Old Mutual, who funded that project. So it is a responsibility of government, a responsibility of organized business to make sure that we're not only talking for big business, but we also talk of SMMEs, because that's where mostly we see a lot of employment. That's where mostly we see the economic growth, where people are able to trade amongst themselves and build their communities through that trade. So it was a very, very encouraging story. We can see also that after the flooding, there is a lot that is happening where we work with our social partners in making sure SMMEs are taken care of.
Where can we add the most value at this point? I mean, looking forward, particularly in the role that government needs to play, but also other social partners within this compact.
Well, I think at this time we have identified as business, common interests to say, for instance, the safety and security is one of the things that we can't compromise. We need our law enforcement to take a more proactive approach in terms of preparing for any form of disaster. Government needs to work with the business community to ensure safety and security is prioritized, and resources need to be mobilized to support intelligence gathering. But more than that, we had like 5 pillars to rebuild our economy that we have put together as a Durban Chamber. One being the safe and secure environment. This is a pillar that will develop, the trust between government as well as business. And number 2, you had identification of priority of catalytic project that will stimulate stability and growth quickly. And number 3, we had the rapid provision of bulk services, including planning approvals that needs to be done as quickly as possible. There are people with a lot of plans and they want to build. So if we can do approvals as quickly, we will be actually generating employment and economic rebuilding as quickly as possible. Number 4 is infrastructure development, budget allocation. After the flooding as well as the looting, our infrastructure is very much damaged. But if we are focusing on infrastructure development, we will be focusing on economic development. So it's important, therefore, that we look at infrastructure development as one of the pillars to drive economic growth in this country. And finally, restoration of investor confidence is very important. Without that, it will be important to have monies, coming into our country, to build new factories, new industries, and so on. So we need to restore that confidence.
Mr. Malishe, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming on. That's Gladwin Malishe, Deputy President of the Durban Chamber of Commerce and Industry.